and they've said that as soon as they get in, net zero will be scrapped. They've said they're going to put a windfall tax now on all these people like Dale Vince and people like that who are creaming it off taxpayer subsidies.
The Tories deported no one. Labour are already deporting people and might stick with Labour a bit longer.
They're using Reform UK colours because they think that's going to put people back to Labour because they're using Reform colours, because it's going to attract Reform voters. Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy are all on course, if you look at the polling, to lose their seats.
Hi everybody and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning guest is that Preston journalist again. How you doing, Ash?
Very good, thanks, Nick. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You're the guy I go to when I want to know what's going on domestically in politics with the main parties. So let's have a chat about that. What's happening with Reform UK? What's the latest on them? How are they doing?
If you look at the polling, they're doing very well. You've seen now, most polls now have them at second or first. Even a YouGov poll had them at first the other week, with the Tories as low as 18% in some, but we'll get onto them later, of course. Reform UK are still, I wouldn't say they're playing it as safe. Maybe they've been watching our podcast because they have been playing it a bit less safe, I think. They've been coming out with more things now. Rupert Lowe is still doing the incredible job that he's doing anyway. They seem to be doing a lot more press conferences, a lot more rallies with their supporters. They just announced what they call will be the biggest political rally this country's ever seen, which is going to take place, is it April or March in Birmingham? Whether it'll be the biggest or not, who knows? But that's what they're saying. And I don't know if you saw, but Richard Tice and Nigel Farage gave what I thought was a brilliant press conference on Wednesday, I think it was, when they were talking about net zero and what they were going to do. And the message was, in their own words, we are putting the renewable industry on notice. And they've said that as soon as they get in, net zero will be scrapped. They've said they're going to put a windfall tax now on all these people like Dale Vince and people like that who are creaming it off taxpayer subsidies, which is essentially how this renewable industry runs because it isn't profitable and it's a lie. So it's all run off taxpayer subsidies. And they're going to claim back billions of pounds off these companies, just like the mainstream parties have been doing to the North Sea oil and gas. They're going to do exactly the same to them and get all this money back that they've taken from taxpayers on the promise, of course, that bills were going to come down, and they haven't. So in effect, what the money's gone nowhere anyway, so they're going to try and get it back that way. Nigel ran into a little bit of difficulty during the week. I don't know if you saw the clip or not, where he was walking down the street and someone said to him, "What do you think of Tommy Robinson being in prison?" For once, it wasn't Farage bringing Tommy Robinson up. This was just some idiot shouting at him to try and cause trouble, no doubt. And his words got misconstrued. Did you see the clip?
I saw the headlines. I didn't watch the clip, so it'd be great for you to explain.
So Nigel's walking down the street, got his entourage with him. Someone shouts at him, "What do you think of Tommy Robinson being in prison?" Nigel says, I've watched it so many times now to try and work out exactly what he said. People were trying to say, supporters of Tommy Robinson were trying to say that Nigel Farage said, "I hope he rots." But I think he said, and others as well I've seen agree with me, that he says, "I think it's wrong." And to be fair to him, that is one thing he has said. Because, I mean, as far as like being inside for this crime, which was a civil offence anyway, he shouldn't be in prison. Anybody else would have got a slap on the wrist, and that would have been the end of it. But they put Tommy Robinson in a solitary confinement for 9 months, sorry. So I think he's been hard done by there, and I think it's people trying to cause a bit of trouble for Reform UK. But they're certainly still climbing higher and higher in the polls. We've even seen Labour using Reform UK colours now for banners, where they're putting out deportations are up and all this stuff, which is essentially a lie in itself as well. But they're using Reform UK colours because they think that's going to put people back to Labour because they're using Reform colours, because it's going to attract Reform voters. How simple do these people think we are? I read it. I must admit, I saw the colour and I thought, let's just see what it is. Clicked in a little bit closer to see what it said. As soon as I saw it was Labour, I thought, what the hell's going on? I clicked off it. It's not going to make me change my mind and go and vote for Labour just because I see sort of Labour banner in Reform UK colours. They're treating people like idiots. I would say on the whole, they're doing well.
These sort of press things like that, it has a subconscious effect, as in, like you, people clicked on it going, oh, reform, and then they see, oh, Labour are reducing illegal immigration and are deporting people. Do I believe it or not? But that message now has been subconsciously implanted in that person. It's sneaky. but it is clever.
Oh, it's clever enough, yeah. But they're not reducing illegal immigration. Boat crossings are up. We've found out that a lot of these people that are being deported are actually going willingly. They're being paid £3,000 of yours and my money, and anybody else watching this money, to actually go home. So they're getting 3 grand and going, oh, lovely, yeah, no problem. And then they'll probably come back again on the boat next year. And how many of these people that have been deported or decided to go home and getting flown home have actually come over on a small boat? Can you answer me that question? Zero. Not one small boat person has actually been deported. A deportation flight took off during the week. The flight could hold up to 200 and something people. There was 47 people on it. It was £22,000 a seat the taxpayer paid just to deport 47 people. It cost well over £1 million to deport 47 people. Stick them on any flight, book them any ticket that's going to their country and get them away. That's all it takes. We don't have to get all these private jets and stuff. Just get them away on a flight. It doesn't matter.
But then you don't have that press attention then. Labour wanted the press attention of deportation flights. They wanted the video of these people walking on those planes. This was all a PR stunt, basically. They wanted good PR out of deporting 44 people who all wanted to go home anyway and were being paid to go home.
Thing is though, who's the good PR for? I don't really see how this helps Starmer at all. It doesn't help Starmer because the one thing they have been doing, I will admit, is deporting more people. The nuances around that, the caveats to that, you can discuss later. But they have been deporting more people. It's the one thing as well that Starmer doesn't want to talk about. I made a video called Starmer's Catch-22, and the Catch-22 is they are getting rid of more people, which is against Starmer's own beliefs. It's against the Labour Party's own beliefs, and it's certainly against the vast majority of the Labour membership's own beliefs. If Starmer wants to keep hold of the youth vote, the student vote, if you will, deporting people and promoting that what you're doing there, deporting people, is not going to win him the student vote. He's got his own MPs turning on him because they don't believe that people should be deported either. So the one small minor success that he has had is actually going to damage him more within his own party and make his position in his own party less stable. Although the vast majority of the country, I suggest, would agree with the policy, of course, of deporting more of these people.
And that's why he's doing it. He knows his party may hate him for it, but his party on the whole will still vote Labour at the next election anyway, rather regardless if he's in charge or not. He knows he's in trouble. He's having to attract other voters or voters that used to vote Labour that have left if he's got any chance of staying in power, which we know for a fact he hasn't. But he's still trying. He's still trying, and those PR stunts work because people won't look at the detail. They'll just go, "Oh, look what Labour are doing. The Tories deported no one. Labour are already deporting people. I might stick with Labour a bit longer." Um, it won't work. But apart from that, how's Starmer doing?
His approvals are at what, -63. The government's at -50. The latest YouGov polling for the NHS, the government's at -55. Handling of the economy, the government sits at -59. Rich, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy are all on course, if you look at the polling, to lose their seats. Not just to reform either, by the way, to independence. Jess Phillips is also on course to lose her seat. They're having to do, I won't say emergency, that's pushing it a bit, but they're having to do a reshuffle if the rumours are true, which is going to take place in late spring, and try and change their fortunes around. Personally, I don't think any reshuffle is going to change this party's fortunes around. This is supposed to be his top team. What lunatic's going to come after these lot? He's got a chancellor. I don't know if you've seen the latest story on Reeves, but the BBC for once have actually done a good job, and they've been digging into Reeves's past. She's now had to alter her CV on LinkedIn for a second time now.
Again.
Yeah, incredible. It turns out she now left is it HBOS in 2009 under what was called some sort of legal agreement she had with them because her and two senior managers alongside her were under investigation for fiddling their expenses. So this is the measure of the woman. She's got a fake CV, she's got a fake career, fake job history, and now it turns out if she hadn't have walked away from HBOS, she'd have actually been sacked because she was putting through on her expenses handbags, perfumes, wine, meals out. Meals out, you can get away with on your expenses. Fair enough at work, in some circumstances. But yeah, she had to leave on what was called a compromise agreement, which is a voluntary agreement. Now, Reeves's people are now trying to say, well, she wasn't interviewed, she wasn't sacked over this. No, because she walked away under this compromise agreement, which stopped her being sacked. It was probably an NDA, and I bet you she may have even had to pay some money back to them. So everybody kept their mouth shut. She could walk away with her credibility intact, but she was basically being investigated again. And let's not forget, she's got form for this. She was investigated in Parliament. She had her expenses card suspended in Parliament for spending it on dodgy things that shouldn't have gone through the expenses as well. This woman is, she's not, she probably is the main anchor to this government, apart from Starmer himself. She's, completely discredited. And she does need to go. She's a complete fraud, in my opinion. But Starmer knows that if he gets rid of Reeves, he's signing his own political death warrant as well. Because he looks incompetent. He's put somebody in charge of the economy who has crashed it. He's put somebody in charge of the economy who is nothing more, with greatest respect to anybody who works in complaints, but a complaint handler. That's all she is. And she, like I said, she has to go, but he can't get rid of her. This is a major headache for Starmer, and I bet you a pound to a penny he wouldn't appoint her again if he had his time again. But it's too late now. So when the cabinet reshuffle does come, if it comes, Reeves will be safe. And ironically, she's one of the main ones that should be gone straight away.
I'm not sure she is safe. You're right, as in something like 50% of all prime ministers, if they sack their chancellor, they're gone pretty soon afterwards as well. But that's only a 50% chance. So he may be at a stage where he's thinking to himself, we're done anyway, unless we turn the economy around. She's killing it. I might as well flip this coin, get rid of it, flip the coin and see if we can improve the economy because we're going to be gone anyway. So all depends how brave he is. If he's willing to take that chance. If he doesn't, then you're right. Things will carry on. And if she does go, who replaces her? Who's in there with that knowledge to be able to turn the economy around? At the moment, the name being floated around is Yvette Cooper, but I'm not sure she's any better either.
What, another lawyer? What good's that? Yet another lawyer. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, just what we need. Not one person on that front bench has ever, apart from Angela Rayner, she had a proper job. She was a carer, weren't she, for a while? Fair enough. Apart from that, I don't think any of them that I can name have ever had a proper job in their entire lives. They've gone to university, they've then gone to, you know, bag carrying for some MP, or they've become councillors or trade union representatives, and then they've managed to get into politics by kissing a bit of backside in the Labour Party. These people have zero life experience, zero business experience, which is why I actually think Reform UK are more appealing to a lot of people, because you've got people on there who run their own businesses and things like that. Labour have none of that. These people don't know how to run an economy. They're having to tax because they can't borrow anymore, because they've borrowed so much already that they've hit the ceiling, as they called it, the headroom that Rachel Reeves reckoned she'd given herself. I mean, when your headroom is, and this isn't all Labour's fault, comes from both parties, but when your headroom, you're calling that financial breathing space, is just more money that you can borrow, then you really are in trouble. I would call proper fiscal headroom, I would call a surplus. You've actually got some money there put aside, ring fenced, if you will, for a rainy day that you can spend on some other projects. But no, we're just looking at how much can we borrow? How much can we borrow? And like I said to you in one of our last chats, we're actually borrowing money to pay the interest on our own national debt. This is a death spiral. And I'll disagree with you again. I think Reeves is safe, and I think she only goes when the May elections happen, and Starmer's going to have to do something very, very desperate to try and improve his own image, to try and save his own skin. And we've seen in the past that he will throw anybody under the bus if it means that he can save himself. And he's not the only politician to be like that, by the way. They're all like that. But he will throw anybody under that bus. And if he can throw Reeves under the bus to save himself, then fine. But like you said, who's going to follow him? There is nobody in that party qualified to be Chancellor of this country. And that's partly the problem with all our politics. We've got Wes Streeting at Health, never worked in health in his life. You've got Yvette Cooper as Home Secretary, never worked in immigration, doesn't know anything about it. You've got David Lammy. What has he ever done to qualify him to be Foreign Secretary apart from go to Harvard University?
Well, he called himself a Caribbean, so that's quite handy for the foreign secretary.
Yeah, to be a foreigner, yeah, yeah, brilliant, yeah. And the guys from Tottenham, why don't you just tell the truth? That's what really annoys me about these people. Really gets on my nerves. I don't. Another thing I wanted to discuss, Nick. I don't know if you saw that Starmer went to a housing development that was being done, and our friendly farmers turned up to greet him. Did you not see it?
No, I've not seen
Um,
this.
he tried to give a bit of an interview to, I can't remember now, one of the MSM, and the farmers are all there with the horns blasting and everything. You can barely hear. Probably a good thing actually. You can barely hear what Starmer's saying at all. And then eventually they had to cut the visit short to this housing development. They had to get in the little Land Rovers and drive off. And the farmers were actually shouting at his car, "Why don't you come out and actually talk to us properly, like an adult?" And he wouldn't. He's just driven off as fast as he can. This is how low they've sunk. And then he's had to come out and give I would call an emergency interview to ITV, in which he says, and I quote. Do they prefer waiting lists to come down, their mortgages to come down, and the economy to start working for everyone, or do they want me to keep the tax break on farmers? You can't have both. Since they came in, they've ploughed over 10 billion into public sector pay rises. They ploughed another 10 billion into the NHS, which was spent within a month. Mortgage rates are not going to come down if you start taxing these farmers more. The farm tax was only going to raise 536 million, which they've already sent abroad in foreign aid to help foreign farmers in, was it Rwanda or something like that?
Rwanda in Brazil.
Rwanda and Brazil. So don't try and tell us that you're going to bring mortgages down, sort the economy out, and bring NHS waiting lists down by taxing these farmers because it's bollocks.
My question then is this: economy is tanking. The Labour government need more money. There's only three options. There is cuts to services. There's borrowing more money if they can, or there's more tax hikes. What are they going to do, Ash?
Well, they'll have to break yet another manifesto pledge. They're going to have to come back for more tax. There's nothing else they can do. They can't borrow. They can't borrow anymore now. They've hit the financial ceiling, if you will. Where else is money going to come from? They've taken 41 billion extra in taxes out of the private sector. They've given all the extra money that we had, which was probably borrowed anyway, to pay for public sector pay rises. There is no money. So they're going to come now and take it off people like you and me, people who just normal taxpayers, because all the millionaires are leaving, all the billionaires are leaving, all your non-doms, they're all leaving. We've had the equivalent of what, 530 odd thousand taxpayers leave this country since Labour came to power. And that's just through millionaires who account for, one billionaire accounts for a hell of a lot of me and the amount of tax that I pay. So they're going to have to come back. They're going to have to raise income tax. They might have to raise national insurance contributions for us. They might even raise VAT. But they will have to come back for more tax. And they said there will be one financial statement every single year. No more, no less. We're sticking to our financial rules, all that rubbish. Well, this is going to be a panic statement in spring, and they're going to try and spin it, of course, and call it a normal financial spending review and all this rubbish, but it's not. It's an emergency. We're skint. They've skinted us. The private sector simply can't cough up anymore because we've lost God knows how many jobs already. We're going to see more go before April when these new rules come in. The retail sector's warning that 300,000 jobs are going to go over the next 3 years because they can't afford to pay all the staff. So they're going tillless basically now. It's going to be self-service shops. Even Next are doing that. So yeah, they're going to come and raid you and me all over again.
Well, that will be disaster, absolute disaster. Um, let's change the subject and let's talk about something insignificant. How the Tories doing?
Could be going better, couldn't it? Right, okay, so the Tories are, let's be polite and say, floundering somewhat. Kemi Badenoch, as we've discussed in the past, is only the seventh most popular person in the Tory party to actually be the leader. Every time there's a poll between her, Farage, and Starmer to see who would be the most popular prime minister of this country, she comes in third. And whereas you might see, sometimes you might see Starmer 25, Farage 24, vice versa, changing up and down, Kemi is coming in at 12, 13, 14%. She's a long, long way behind those two. PMQs, for people that are sad enough to watch it like me, was another unmitigated disaster. Just 2 weeks ago, I made a video about Kemi on PMQs, and she actually had a very, very good week, and I was really impressed with her. She hammered Starmer. I can't remember the topic now, but she hammered him, and it was very, very good. And he was floundering and acting like an arrogant idiot, like he does a lot of the time. But this week, again, she decided to use her questions on the question of Gazans being able to immigrate over here through that through the Ukraine scheme because a judge has allowed it. She asked Starmer, "Are you going to stop this? This isn't right," etc. Starmer straight away, unexpectedly to her, said, "Yes, it's wrong, and we are going to close that loophole." That was it then. So Kemi had no plan B. She then went again on question 2 and 3 on asking him exactly the same thing in a slightly different way. And Starmer eventually, I won't say I sympathised with Starmer, but I got his point. On the third question, he went, "Look, I've answered it 3 times now. I've told you, yes, we're going to close the loophole." But she kept asking the same questions. There was no, if he, fair enough, it's unexpected. I would have expected Starmer to talk a lot of crap and say, "Oh, well, we'll have to look at this and that." But he completely blindsided her. And she was left completely floundering. She had nothing else to ask him. She was made to look stupid. The people on her own benches sitting behind her could you could just see their faces thinking, what's she doing? You know, uh, in a way, I feel sorry for her. I've said this to you before. I think she's being um, what's the word? Pushed out. I think that they're intentionally pushing her out. They're making her look ridiculous, and in a way, I do feel sorry for her because she stood there making an absolute tit of herself every single week. There is no way a political party that has survived as long as the Tories, probably the oldest political party in the developed world, can be this bad at PMQs. They've never done it before. Maybe Theresa May's was a poor time, but mostly they've never done this before. And all of a sudden, Kemi's there. She's not popular. They're tanking in the polls. The worst I've seen them, by the way, was it last week? They were polling at 18%, which is absolutely horrendous. Possibly the worst result. I think it would be if that was to materialize into a general election. I think that'd be the worst result in their entire history. And they've been around for well over 100 years, the Tory party.
I think it's 250 years.
Oh, there you go then. So I think she's being set up. She's being made to look a fool. And whether that's because the men in grey suits didn't want her, the people that run the party, maybe they didn't want her in the first place and they're not happy with her, like when they got Liz Truss. I believe Liz Truss was well and truly hung out to dry by the party. They didn't want her, they wanted Sunak. Maybe instead of her, they've got somebody else in mind. But I don't think it'll be a generic. I think it'll be somebody sitting in the wings somewhere who's already been spoken to. Sit down, keep quiet, keep your powder dry, and you'll be a leader in 6 months. I don't see Kemi making it another 6 months. I really don't. I'd be surprised if she gets past May because I think the Tories are going to get an absolute walloping in these elections. I mean, possibly even a worse result than Labour, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see on that. But I think they're going to get an absolute walloping, and she'll be the one that carries the can for it, even though it's not all her fault. But she is the leader.
Well, we've been saying this, both of us have been saying it for months. She's only a interim leader. After the disaster of the general election, they had to elect somebody, and whoever they elected was always going to be temporary until they sorted themselves out. And that temporary leader always gets the worst of it and gets, the worst end of the stick. And it's a leader who comes after that has got a better chance of being a long-term leader. And she's just been placed there as a puppet and there'll be a civil war at the moment in the Tory party between the wets and the real Tories about who takes over. And at the moment, it's just the wets because most of the MPs are basically Lib Dems anyway. And there's probably someone in the wings that the men in grey suits thinking that's our long-term leader. Let Kemi do all the heavy lifting, take all the flack, and then we can blame her for everything. And this new person comes along who hasn't got the stench of the last 14 years on him, and that can be the leader. So all these shenanigans will be going on.
You know what I think she could do? Well, I'll tell you what I'd do if I was in her shoes. I'd roll the dice. I'd think, right, I don't look very good anyway. My party isn't a massive fan of me. The membership don't really like me. We're not doing well in the polls. I'm basically starting from rock bottom here. We've just took an absolute tonking in the elections. Things can't really get much worse. What's the only thing that can happen is I lose my job, and she'll still be in Parliament anyway, so it's not the end of the world. She's still got a fat salary, and she'll probably get some sort of shadow minister position anyway. I would be taking the Boris approach now, the Boris and Dominic Cummings approach, and I'd come out publicly and I would say anybody in this party that doesn't want to follow me and doesn't want to follow my vision, go and join the Lib Dems, go and join the Labour Party. They've only got 120 odd MPs anyway. What's the difference if you go down to 100? Absolutely nothing. Sod all. Even if you go down to less than 100, tell these people follow me or get out. Show some tough leadership and see how many actually walk. Make them fall into line. Boris had to kick out, if you remember, people like Ken Clark, who was the father of the house at the time. As soon as he voted against him, lose the whip, see you later. And he actually had to give up. He left himself in a position where he couldn't even call an election because we still had the Fixed Term Parliament Act at the time. So he had to sit there getting beaten every week until eventually the other parties could see that an election had to be called because they were sick to death of all this politicking going on with Corbyn and the Lib Dems, etc. So why doesn't Kemi just roll the dice? It's not in her gift to call an election anyway. She's got very little to lose. Get some policies together and say, these are my policies, this is my vision, follow me or get out. And if the Tories turn around and then boot her out, her public opinion for actually showing some principle and showing some conservative values, if her policies represent that, would then rocket. People would think, oh, this woman's actually got some principle. I quite like that. And then she'd be far better off than whichever Tory wet then took over from her. Because you'd be absolutely right, it'd be the wets that would go against her, the people that don't actually belong in the Conservative Party. But she either stands up to them or she gets out because these people will bring her down in the end anyway, just like they did with Boris, just like they did with Truss. They got their man in Sunak and they got battered. So it's do or die. It's getting towards do or die time. I know she hasn't been there long. It's a difficult job, and everything that's happened in the past isn't always her fault. But she was in the government for a lot of that time. She was in Parliament for a lot of that time, and she didn't speak out. On immigration, for example, she's got no authority whatsoever because she was the one fighting her own party to get more people let into this country and celebrated when more people were let into this party. So everything she says, Starmer can just come back with, well, look at the last 14 years. And I'm afraid it's a thankless task he's got at the minute. But like I just said, it's do or die. She either puts up or shuts up.
I completely agree. She's got nothing to lose. The Tories are still unelectable and will be for a long time. Um, she needs to show her party in the country that she's a leader and that she has ideas. I don't think any of that's in her, but that's what I would do. Tip the table upside down and see where the chips fall, because you finished anyway. At least it looks like you're going out fighting it. You may get some luck on your side. Things may happen, but continuing down the status quo is going to get you nowhere. Have you watched the interview she did with Trigonometry?
No, I haven't. No.
I've not watched it yet. I saw the clip of it, but it's on my list to watch, hopefully, this weekend. And again, on the video, she's saying, we're not coming out of the ECHR. It's like,
Yeah.
can again, she's doing the job she's been put in there to do, and she won't be there much longer. And then we'll see what the Tories do after that.
Yeah, well, what I think I know exactly what they'll do. They'll get the man or woman that they originally wanted in the first place before Kemi got the job. Who that's going to be, I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know. It'll be someone I don't like very much, I imagine. But it won't be a generic, even though he's by far the favourite to be the next leader. But the Tory party knows now that if they were to get rid of Kemi and have another a leadership contest, that contest would then be between Jenrick and a few other no-hopers, and Jenrick would win it hands down because I don't believe he actually believes half the stuff he's saying because he's never been on the right of the party before. But all of a sudden he's had this conversion to the right of the party. But if Jenrick ran in a leadership contest now, he'd win it comfortably. And I don't believe he's the person that CCHQ want in charge either. They want some boring centrist who's going to just toe the line, who's going to be one of these Tory wets. And off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that would be good enough to be leader. I mean, the people that Chris Philp isn't too bad that sits alongside him. He's the Shadow Home Secretary, I think, or is it Shadow Chancellor or something like that. He puts himself about in the media quite a bit. I think he'd have a stab at it. But I don't think he's a wet either. I think he's on the right of the party. So, I mean, they've got so little MPs left. There's been, I'm lost. I'm lost for how bad this part. I was a diehard Tory, Nick, mate. I'm absolutely diehard until they locked us down for a second time. And to see the party in the state it's in now, and with some of the good MPs have gone, your John Redwoods of this world, um, who else? Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world, people that were actually conservatives have gone, and you're left with this rabble of losers basically who've got no morale, they've got no policies, nothing to campaign on. They know they're walking into another slaughter in the local elections. It's just an absolute basket case of a party, and it doesn't seem to have a vision. It doesn't have a direction. Are they on the left, right, centre? And everyone knows that Kemi is a lame duck leader. And like I said, going back, sorry to repeat myself, but I'd be rolling the dice now. Like you said, turn the table upside down and let the chips fall where they may, and go out fighting at least, instead of looking like this wimpy, weak woman, which I don't think she is, but she's looking like that, and it's a very, very bad public perception she's got.
Yeah, I think the only consolation is they're insignificant as a party. So it's not worth worrying about them. It's not worth trying to figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it and who should take over. At this moment in time and for the near future, they're insignificant. There's only two parties worth talking about in the UK. One's Reform and the other one's Labour because they're in power. Tories, insignificant. Ash, cheers for coming back on and keep us updated what's going on. I'll let you do all the work. I'll let you listen to PMQs. I'll let you read the articles. I'll let you keep abreast of all the political parties because it bores the life out of me. So I chat to you, let you do the hard work, and then you can educate me. So thanks for doing
Yeah, cheers, Nick. I love coming on and talking about this stuff. So great.
that. See you later.
Cheers, Nick. Thanks a lot. Bye.